What's happening, guys? Sorry for the delay, but it's finally time to bring you week 2 of the LSBA. You guys are already familiar with my team, but this week I decided to trade Mismagius for Tornadus Incarnate to give me a special Mega Venusaur counter, which was giving me problems as you saw last week, and that trade will come into effect starting week 3 of the LSBA. My opponent this week is the Detroit Donphans, whose team is listed above. Three mons that really stand out to me when I look over his team are Alakazam, Selby, and Latias, his three psychic types. I know that my team has plenty of coverage for psychic types, but Alakazam, for one, is faster than anything in my team. Selby can threaten Manaphy, one of my major powerhouses, as well as Dragalge. And Mega Latias is just so bulky and has such a both offensive and defensive presence that it's a problem for any team to deal with. Another thing that I noticed on his team is his huge weakness to grass coverage, and as I expect him to expect me to bring my Rotom Heat, I expected him either to bring the Gastrodon or the Quagsire to this match. This week I decided to do something a little different than what my roster calls for and goes really offensive. So I'm bringing an Adamant Doublade and a Jolly Mega Absol, both of which are carrying the Pursuit to be able to trap that Alakazam, which otherwise could give me a lot of problems. I'm bringing a Timid Choice Specs Tentacruel with Scald, Sludge Wave, Giga Drain, and Ice Beam, and a Salt Fest Regenerator Reuniclus. Manaphy with, of course, Manaphy Set, Tail Glow, and Leftovers, and a Timid Rotom Heat as well. On his roster, he's bringing the Mega Latias, which I really expected, as well as the Alakazam, Sylveon, Typhlosion, Lucario, and Diancie. I am very surprised that he did not bring either the Gastrodon or the Quagsire, both of which wall Rotom Heat entirely, and could potentially put a lot of work against my team. And I am somewhat surprised to see that Lucario, because not that it's not a good mon, it's just I have a lot of counters to the Lucario, so I didn't expect him to be bringing that this week. And now let's just start the match. To start off the match, I'm going to lead with my Doublade because it can hurt basically anything on his team pretty hard. I am adamant fully attack invested, as he's going to lead with his Diancie. Seeing that Diancie lead, I know he's going to get his screens up, so I'm going to go for a Sword Stance here, just like last week, to be able to offset those screens. And now I'm going to expect him to switch out, but I don't really care. I'm going to fire off an Iron Head anyways, as he switches out into the Typhlosion for the take that resisted hit. However, I feel like that was a bit of a bad play on his part, because even though it is resisted with Reflect, Typhlosion's main move of choice is the Eruption, which you want the maximum amount of HP for. So taking that hit is going to hurt him in the long run. As he fires off this Eruption, I'm going to switch on to my Tentacruel to take that no problem. And I'm going to expect him to switch on into his Mega Latias here. So I'm going to fire off a Choice Specs Ice Beam to be able to whittle that down a bit. As you see, I predicted correctly, and this is going to do a nice chunk of damage to that Mega Latias, which is going to help me out greatly. As he is forced to Mega Evolve here, I'm going to switch out into my Reuniclus, because I know I can take any hit that he can throw at me. I don't want my Tentacruel to be able to take a Psychic, because I know that my Tentacruel is still going to have quite a job in front of it for the rest of this game. And I know my Reuniclus can take a hit no problem, so I do switch out into that. And I'm going to fire off a Shadow Ball here to be able to pick off that Mega Latias. As he fires off a Dracometer, which, as you see, does basically nothing. I am a Selfist, and I am a Reuniclus. Reuniclus is bulky AF. So Reuniclus takes out that Mega Latias, and he's going to send in his Typhlosion. I feel like Reuniclus can still possibly do work later on, so I'm going to switch out to get that Regenerator going and back into my Tentacruel, because as you saw earlier, Tentacruel could take an Eruption no problem. And now with his Mega Latias gone, I know he has no switch-ins for Choice Spec Scald, so that's what I'm going to do right here. He decides to sack off his Lucario. which was a smart choice on his part because Lucario wasn't going to do much in this battle. I'm surprised he doesn't have the extreme speed here because extreme speed is such a good move and it would have done wonders to get just a little bit more of chip damage on that Tentacruel. Obviously, I don't want to take a Side Shock from an Alakazam, so I'm going to switch into my Appleply, arguably my least valuable member in my roster at the moment. I'm going to get those leftovers recovery, and I'm going to go for the Volt Switch here on the off chance that I do happen to live, which I do with 3 HP. I live with 3 HP, which is quite amazing. I think that was just a damage roll there. And here I'm going to go into my Doublade because I think he's going to expect the Shadow Sneak. So I'm going to predict him to switch out, and I'm going to go for the Pursuit, which is going to knock out that Alakazam beautifully, which is a huge load off my chest. Alakazam could have put in a lot of work against my team. So it's just a relief that that thing's gone. Obviously, I'm not going to take Interruption again, so I'm going to switch in my Appleply to sack it off. He was expecting me, obviously, to go into my Tentacruel yet again, so he decides to go for the Extra Sensory. Since I know he's locked in to Extra Sensory, since I'm fairly certain he is Scarfed, I'm going to switch into my Absol, because obviously Extra Sensory is going to do nothing. And I'm going to go for the knockoff here as I Mega Evolve. As you see, he switches into the Diancie, which would usually be a problem, except I am packing the Iron Tail. Obviously, the Iron Tail is a last resort, since its accuracy is so low, but I really don't want him to get those screens off, because getting screens off could be potentially really bad for me. So I decided to take the risk and go for the Iron Tail, which does pay off, which is very relieving. And he's going to go back into the Typhlosion, and it's at this point I know for a fact he is Scarfed, otherwise he would not have sent it in against my Absol. So I'm going to go back out to Squishy, my Tentacruel, to take another Eruption. However, with that damage, it does look like I'm going to fall down to another Eruption after here. It is sad that Tentacruel went down like that, but it put in major work. I'm so proud of my Tentacruel throughout this battle. Now I'm going to send in my Manaphy because I know Typhlosion can do nothing to it when it's locked into Eruption. Looking back, I definitely should have gone for the Tail Glow because Tail Glow obviously would have dealt better against this Sylveon, but I went for the Scald instead, thinking that there is an off chance that the Typhlosion might have stayed in. So here I go for the Tail Glow against the Sylveon, and based on this damage that the Hyper Voice does, it does look like a more defensive set. If it were an offensive Sylveon, I definitely would have been in trouble because that would have been a 2-hit KO against my Manaphy. But since it does look more defensive, it looks like I'm going to be able to survive 2 Hyper Voices. I'm going to fire off this +3 Skull, which is going to hurt like a Banshee, but it doesn't quite get the kill. And then we both get our leftovers recovery here. And of course, there's no reason to go for another Scald, so that's what I'm going to do and take out this Sylveon. Sylveon's going to go down, and this last one is the Typhlosion. So now it is just a question whether Manaphy is going to be able to survive an Eruption with 54 HP left. I do live on 9 HP, which I'm not sure if that was a damage roll or not. It wouldn't have mattered either way. I had the game anyways. If Manaphy did go down there, I just would have switched into Doublade, gone for a Shadow Sneak, and then if Doublade went down to another Eruption, then I would have gone into Absol, where Sucker Punch would have finished the match. So I definitely did have that match there at the end. It was just a matter of differential. Tentacruel put in serious work. I am so proud of little Squishy there with that choice specs. It only got 1 kill, obviously, but I was able to get that Mega Latias down to where Rheonicus could pick it off and put the pressure on Typhlosion and kept Typhlosion from sweeping. I was able to take out Lucario. So overall, I definitely would give Tentacruel the MVP of this week because Tentacruel just put in serious work. All right, well, have a good one, guys, and I'll see you next week for week 3 of the LSBA.